Threadmund.
Threadmund.
Threadmund?
Threadmund.
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 The Quarry is an interactive horror game created by Supermassive Games and released in 2022. It's essentially a slasher movie in which you can control the outcome, similar to its predecessor 2015's Until Dawn. The game takes inspiration from games like Heavy Rain and Indigo Prophecy, though it offers a few different ways to play, including a movie mode, which removes player control entirely. In between the game and movie modes is Director's Chair mode, which lets you choose how characters will respond in different situations, and then watch the results. There are also local and online multiplayer modes. In local or couch co-op mode, different players have direct control over different characters' actions, whereas in online co-op mode, there is one host player and choices in the game are controlled via vote. I played the game on PC, and while performance was generally pretty good once I got the settings dialed in, I did initially struggle to find the settings sweet spot. For me, running the game at a locked 30 frames per second and leaving the shadows at high or better was essential for getting consistent performance without compromising the visuals too much. Being filmic by nature, 30 frames per second actually feels like a good fit for the game. Turning the shadows down to normal significantly raises the frame rate, but looks really bad as you can see in the video. After a brief prologue, the story begins at the end of an apparently whopping 2-month-long summer camp at Hackett's Quarry. I only went to one summer camp as a kid, and that lasted 2 weeks. I've never heard of one that lasts so long, but I digress. The camp counselors are packing up and getting ready to leave after seeing the last of the younger kids off. Keep in mind these are high school seniors, they're still kids themselves, though you'd be forgiven for thinking they were older than they are, given that most of the actors who portrayed them clearly were. In an ill-advised act of sabotage, the dolt of the group, Jacob, removes a vital part from the van the group is planning to use to get back home, thus ensuring they will have to stay at least one more night at camp. While this is little more than a minor inconvenience for most of the group, Chris Hackett, the only adult and the owner of Hackett's Quarry, seems unduly alarmed by counselors staying one more night, seemingly aware of an unspoken danger. Despite warnings from Mr. Hackett to stay inside, the teens decide that this is the perfect time for a party, and opt to have a bonfire and to seek out alcohol and fireworks, just as any good group of teenagers in a slasher movie would. At the bonfire, under the full moon, things start to go wrong. Strange creatures attack some of the campers, the design of which I found to be a bit bland. There are also human hunters with bloody faces, who seem to shoot indiscriminately. The story starts out a little slow, but I ultimately ended up enjoying it. I gravitated towards some of the characters more than others, but they all had just enough personality to keep me invested in the story and make me care about the outcome. The blasé Dylan was a highlight for me. I also really liked Laura's quick-witted, independent attitude. Nick was probably the most boring, and Jacob is the buffoon of the group. However you feel about the characters, the good news is you have some agency over who lives and dies. If your own personal Jacob becomes too unbearable, you can always get a little lazy with the QuickTime events, giving them their due deliverance. I played the game twice to make sure I could get an ending where all of the characters live, but there were many permutations I left unexplored. The epilogue is pretty bare bones. It essentially boils down to reminding you who lived and who died. There was no mention of the next year, or how things were going in college, etc. This lack of closure is probably the narrative's weakest point. It's not perfect, but the fact that I cared enough to bother getting a better ending should indicate to you that I actually enjoyed it. The story is a success overall. The game is primarily controlled via QuickTime events with sequences of direct analog control interspersed in between. The QTEs are simplified relative to games like Heavy Rain. You use the analog stick, the A button, and the right trigger to shoot. This removes much of the tension from the game, as you'll never miss a button press because you're not sure what's coming. There are some accessibility options to either increase the speed of the QTEs or make them autocomplete without any player input. I like that the game allows you to tailor it to your own preferences, but I feel like something was lost by not incorporating more buttons into the QTEs. One more difficulty level with more intricate button prompts would have been appreciated. I had trouble lining up shots with the shooting segments, mostly because I had a hard time seeing where the center of the flashlight was, which is used as a sight for the guns. A reticle or laser sight probably would have helped here. The game has an option to automatically take shots for you, with the caveat that it won't take a shot that results in a player character death. Once again, this is a nice accessibility option, but it's imperfect because it limits the ways in which the story can unfold. Perhaps the most glaring omission is any sort of narrative flowchart or butterfly effect system a la Detroit Become Human and Until Dawn. When you make a meaningful decision, the game will simply flash Path Chosen, but there is no way to go directly back to a specific choice on subsequent playthroughs like in Detroit. You can't even review what choices were made like in Until Dawn. A chapter select unlocks after the first playthrough. The game definitely feels like a regression from those titles in this respect, and it pretty much requires the help of the internet guides to figure out how to get different endings if you don't want to spend an exorbitant amount of time trying out different paths. The time spent in individual chapters before you get to the meaningful decisions is significant, making the process of unlocking additional endings more of a hassle than it should be. After the first playthrough, the game does provide a death rewind feature, which will take you back to the point where a decision was made that resulted in a character death. You are allowed 3 chances to rewind per playthrough.
There are collectibles strewn throughout the game in the form of clues, evidence, and tarot cards. They expand on the lore slightly in a refined edition, but they can't all be collected in a single playthrough, and they are not persistent across multiple playthroughs. Again, this necessitates the use of the internet to find everything unless you want to spend an extraordinary amount of time poking around. At minimum, the game could have let you know how many collectibles were available on a per-chapter basis. Thankfully, there are a variety of excellent guides available to pick up the slack for the game. Overall, the Quarry's narrative provides plenty of possibilities, but as a work of interactive fiction, the game feels a bit stilted. I hope Supermassive's future titles put more thought into narrative accessibility for multiple playthroughs. Being able to jump into specific portions of a chapter via a flowchart like in Detroit Become Human would probably be the optimal solution, but any sort of method to help visualize the narrative would be a step in the right direction. For as critical as I have been of the game in the review, I actually really enjoyed it. For all its shortcomings, I played through it twice, and I could see myself coming back to the game in the future to finish out the achievements and see more of the endings. If I do, I'll definitely be utilizing a guide to help me get the Caitlyn Final Girl ending. Also, Daydream Believer by the Monkees is a banger of a song that I would have used throughout this video if copyright claims weren't a thing. I think that song is eternally stuck in my head and I'm okay with it.
Feel free to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.